Sarah Davis looked out the window of her small spaceship. The stars twinkled in the darkness of space. She was nervous but excited. Earth had sent her on a special mission to a faraway planet called XR-27. Approaching XR-27, the ship's computer said in a calm voice, "Prepare for landing." Sarah took a deep breath and put on her spacesuit. She had trained for years for this moment. She was the best explorer Earth had, but even she didn't know what to expect on this strange new world. As the ship entered the planet's atmosphere, Sarah saw dark clouds and flashes of lightning. The ship shook as it flew through the stormy sky. Finally, it landed on a rocky surface. Sarah checked her equipment one last time. She had her oxygen tank, her laser gun, and her communication device. She was ready. "Opening airlock," the computer announced. The door of the ship opened slowly. Sarah stepped out onto the alien planet. The sky was a dark purple color, and 2 moons shone brightly above. The air was thick and misty. Sarah turned on her suit's lights and looked around. The ground was covered in strange, glowing plants. In the distance, she could see tall, black mountains. "This is Sarah Davis, reporting from XR-27. She said into her communication device. "The planet appears to be habitable, but with a very different environment from Earth." She took a few steps forward, her boots crunching on the rocky ground. Suddenly, she heard a strange noise. It sounded like a mix between a growl and a hiss. Sarah froze. Her heart started beating faster. She slowly turned around. There, standing just a few feet away, was the most terrifying creature she had ever seen. It was tall, at least 8 feet high. Its body was black and shiny, like polished metal. It had a long, curved head and sharp claws on its hands and feet. Sarah recognized it immediately. It was a xenomorph, the deadliest predator known in the galaxy. These creatures were famous for their strength, speed, and killer instinct. No one had ever survived a close encounter with a xenomorph before. Sarah's hand moved towards her laser gun, but she stopped. The xenomorph wasn't attacking. It was just watching her. For a moment, they stared at each other. Sarah could hear her own breathing inside her helmet. The xenomorph tilted its head, as if it was curious about her. Then something unexpected happened. The xenomorph made a series of clicks and whistles. It almost sounded like language. Sarah's scientific mind kicked in. Could this creature be intelligent? Could it be trying to communicate? Slowly, very slowly, Sarah raised her hand in a peaceful gesture. "Hello," she said, her voice shaking a little. "I'm Sarah. I come from a planet called Earth." The xenomorph made more sounds. It raised one of its clawed hands, mimicking Sarah's gesture. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. This was amazing. The deadliest predator in the galaxy was showing signs of intelligence and peaceful intent. Just then, Sarah's communication device beeped. "Sarah, this is Mission Control. We've lost your signal for a few minutes. Is everything okay?" Sarah looked at the xenomorph, then back at her device. She had a choice to make. Should she tell Earth about this incredible discovery, or should she keep it a secret until she understood more? The xenomorph took a step closer. Sarah's heart raced, but she stood her ground. This could be the start of something incredible, a bond between a human and the galaxy's deadliest predator. "Mission Control," Sarah said, her voice steady now. "You're not going to believe what I found." As the purple sky darkened and the 2 moons of XR-27 shone brightly, Sarah prepared herself for the most important conversation of her life, and perhaps the most important in human history. Sarah's heart raced as she spoke into her communication device. "Mission Control, I've made contact with an intelligent life form. It's a xenomorph." There was a long silence. Then a shocked voice replied, "Sarah, did you say a xenomorph? Are you in danger? Should we send an extraction team?" Sarah looked at the xenomorph. It was still watching her, its head tilted to one side. It didn't seem aggressive at all. "No," Sarah said firmly. "I'm not in danger. This xenomorph is different. It's trying to communicate with me. That's impossible, Mission Control argued. Xenomorphs are just animals, dangerous predators. But Sarah knew what she had seen. I need more time to study this, she said. I'm going to stay and try to communicate further. The xenomorph made a series of clicks and whistles again. Sarah wished she could understand what it was saying. Suddenly, she had an idea. She walked slowly back to her ship, keeping an eye on the xenomorph. It followed her, but kept a respectful distance. Sarah reached into the ship and pulled out a small computer. It was designed to analyze and translate unknown languages. She had brought it just in case she encountered alien writing on the planet. She never imagined she'd use it to talk to a xenomorph. She turned on the computer and pointed it at the xenomorph. "Can you speak again?" she asked. The creature made more sounds. The computer worked quickly, analyzing the patterns in the clicks and whistles. After a few minutes, words appeared on the screen. They were broken and didn't make perfect sense, but Sarah could understand the general meaning. "You? Different," the translation read. "Not like others. Not fear. Why?" Sarah's excitement grew. She was actually communicating with a xenomorph. She spoke clearly, letting the computer translate her words into sounds the xenomorph could understand. "I am a scientist," she said. "I came here to learn. I want to understand you." The xenomorph's response came quickly. "Others. Run. Fight. Die. You. Talk. Interesting." Sarah nodded. "Yes, I want to talk. To learn. Can you tell me about yourself? Do you have a name?" The creature was silent for a moment. Then it made a sound that the computer couldn't translate. It was a complex series of clicks and hisses. "Is that your name?" Sarah asked. The xenomorph nodded. It was a very human-like gesture, and it surprised Sarah. "I can't pronounce that," Sarah said with a smile. "Can I call you X?" The xenomorph made a sound that the computer translated as yes. Over the next few hours, Sarah and X talked. She learned that xenomorphs were not just mindless killers. They were intelligent beings with a complex society. They had been misunderstood by other species for a long time. X explained that xenomorphs only attacked when they felt threatened. Most other species shot first and asked questions later, so xenomorphs had learned to be aggressive to survive. As night fell on XR-27, Sarah realized she had made an incredible discovery. She had not only found intelligent life, but she had started to bridge the gap between humans and the most feared species in the galaxy. "X," she said as the two moons rose in the purple sky. "I think this is the beginning of something amazing." X made a sound that the computer translated as agreement. Sarah looked up at the stars. She knew that what happened here on XR-27 could change the future of the entire galaxy. But she also knew that convincing others would not be easy. Humans and other species had feared xenomorphs for so long. Changing that fear into understanding would be a huge challenge. As she prepared to sleep in her ship that night, with X keeping watch outside, Sarah thought about the days ahead. She had a lot of work to do, but she was ready for it. After all, she had just made friends with the galaxy's deadliest predator. After that, anything seemed possible. The next morning, Sarah woke up to the strange purple light of XR-27's sun. For a moment, she thought yesterday might have been a dream. But when she looked out of her ship's window, she saw X standing there, waiting patiently. Sarah put on her spacesuit and stepped out. "Good morning, X," she said, turning on her translation computer. X made a series of clicks that translated to, "Greetings, Sarah. Sleep well." Sarah smiled. It was still amazing to her that she was having a conversation with a xenomorph. "Yes, thank you. I have so many questions for you today." "Ask," X replied simply. Sarah took a deep breath. "Can you tell me more about your species? How do you live? What's your culture like?" X was quiet for a moment, as if thinking about how to explain. Then it began to speak, and Sarah listened in wonder as the computer translated. "We live in hives, X explained. Like your bees. Each hive has a queen. She is our mother, our leader. We protect her, bring her food. She lays eggs, creates new life. Sarah nodded, fascinated. And what about your technology? Your buildings? X made a sound that the computer couldn't translate. It seemed like laughter. No buildings, X said. We adapt. Use what's around us. Our bodies are our best tools. Sarah looked at X with new appreciation. The xenomorph's body was indeed impressive. Strong, flexible, perfectly adapted for survival in harsh environments. But how do you travel in space? Sarah asked. We've encountered xenomorphs on many planets. X's answer surprised her. We don't build ships. We borrow them. Sarah frowned. Borrow? You mean you take them from other species? Yes, X replied. When others attack us, we defend. Sometimes we win. We use their ships to find new homes. Sarah felt a chill. This explained why xenomorphs were found on so many planets and why they were so feared. But she also understood better now. They weren't invaders. They were refugees, looking for a safe place to live. X, Sarah said slowly, I think there's been a big misunderstanding between our species. We've been afraid of each other, but we never tried to communicate. X nodded. Fear leads to attack. Attack leads to defense. Cycle continues. Sarah stood up, excited. But we can break that cycle. Now that we can communicate, we can explain to others. We can find a way for xenomorphs and other species to coexist peacefully. X made a sound that seemed hopeful. Possible. Others always attack. Hard to trust. It won't be easy, Sarah admitted. But it's worth trying. The galaxy would be a better place if we could understand each other. Just then, Sarah's communication device beeped. It was mission control again. Sarah, it's been 24 hours. We need an update on your situation with the xenomorph. Sarah took a deep breath. This was it. The moment she had to start changing minds. Mission control, I have incredible news. The xenomorph, who I've named X, is intelligent and peaceful. We've been communicating. There's so much we didn't understand about their species. There was a long silence. Then, Sarah, are you sure? This goes against everything we know about xenomorphs. I'm sure, Sarah said firmly. And I can prove it. I want to bring X back to Earth. The silence this time was even longer. Finally, Mission Control spoke again. That's impossible, Sarah. It's too dangerous. Sarah looked at X, who was watching her curiously. It's not dangerous. X is my friend. And this could change everything. Not just for humans, but for the whole galaxy. The authorities will never allow it, Mission Control argued. Sarah stood up straighter. Then we'll have to convince them. This is too important to ignore. We have a chance to end centuries of conflict and misunderstanding. As she waited for Mission Control's response, Sarah turned to X. Are you willing to come with me? To meet other humans and show them that xenomorphs aren't what we thought? X was silent for a moment. Then it made a sound that the computer translated as, yes, for peace, for understanding. I will go. Sarah smiled. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. Changing deep-seated fears and prejudices wouldn't be easy. But as she stood there on that alien planet, with her new xenomorph friend by her side, Sarah felt hope. They had taken the first step towards a new future, a future where humans and xenomorphs could be allies instead of enemies. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah spent hours arguing with Mission Control, trying to convince them to allow X to come to Earth. She sent data, video recordings, and transcripts of her conversations with X. Finally, after much debate, they agreed, but with strict conditions. You'll be met by a military team when you land, the commander told Sarah. X will be kept in a secure facility for study and observation. This is non-negotiable. Sarah didn't like it, but she knew it was the best she could hope for. She turned to X, who had been listening quietly. Are you okay with this? she asked. I promise I'll do everything I can to keep you safe. X made a series of clicks that the translator interpreted as, I trust you, Sarah. I will go, even if it's dangerous. For the future of both our kinds. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. X's bravery and trust touched her deeply. As they prepared the ship for the journey back to Earth, Sarah worked on teaching X more about human culture. She showed X pictures of Earth, explained human customs, and even tried to teach X some simple English words. X was a quick learner. By the time they were ready to leave, the xenomorph could say a few basic phrases without the need for the translator. Hello, thank you, and friend were X's favorites. The day of departure arrived. As Sarah's ship lifted off from XR-27, she felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She looked at X, who was secured in a special compartment she had prepared. Ready for a new adventure? She asked. X nodded and said in its strange, hissing voice, Ready, friend Sarah. The journey to Earth took several weeks. During this time, Sarah and X grew even closer. They shared stories of their lives, their worlds, their hopes and fears. Sarah learned that xenomorphs had a rich oral tradition, passing down their history through stories told by the queens to their hives. X, in turn, was fascinated by human art and music, which Sarah shared through her computer. As they approached Earth, Sarah received a transmission from Mission Control. We're tracking your approach, the commander said. Remember, no communication with X once you enter Earth's atmosphere. The military team will take over from there. Sarah acknowledged the order, but her heart was heavy. She turned to X. We're almost there, she said. Are you nervous? X made a sound that the translator interpreted as a mix of excitement and apprehension. New world. Many humans. Dangerous, but necessary. Sarah nodded. I'll be with you every step of the way, she promised. As the blue and green sphere of Earth grew larger in the view screen, Sarah felt a sudden fear. What if this all went wrong? What if the military decided X was too dangerous? And no, she couldn't think like that. She had to believe in the power of understanding and communication. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere with a jolt. Sarah took a deep breath and prepared for landing. She could see the military vehicles waiting on the landing pad. As the ship touched down, Sarah turned to X one last time. Remember, she said, no matter what happens, you've already changed history. You've shown that xenomorphs and humans can be friends. That's something no one can take away. X nodded and said in its practiced English, Thank you, friend Sarah. The ship's door opened. Sarah stepped out first, blinking in the bright sunlight of her home planet. She heard gasps and saw soldiers raising their weapons as X emerged behind her. Sarah raised her hands. This is X, she announced loudly. X is my friend, and is here in peace. We're here to change how humans and xenomorphs understand each other. There was a tense silence. Sarah held her breath, standing protectively in front of X. This was the moment of truth. Everything depended on what happened next. Then, slowly, the commander stepped forward. He looked at Sarah, then at X. His face was a mix of fear and curiosity. All right, he said finally. Let's talk. As Sarah and X were led towards the facility, she felt a glimmer of hope. It was just a small step, but it was a beginning. The journey to understanding between humans and xenomorphs had truly begun. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of tests, interviews, and tense meetings. Sarah and X were kept in a high-security facility, surrounded by armed guards and curious scientists. Despite the stress, X remained calm and cooperative, always looking to Sarah for guidance. One day, as they sat in their shared living space, Sarah noticed X seemed restless. What's wrong? She asked, turning on the translator. X made a series of clicks and hisses. The translator conveyed, Miss Hive. Miss Open Spaces. This place. Small. Confining. Sarah felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't considered how difficult this would be for X, used to the vast spaces of its home world. I'm sorry, she said. I'll talk to the commander, see if we can get you some time outside. Later that day, Sarah met with Commander Johnson, the man in charge of the facility. X needs more space, she explained. Being confined like this is stressful. It could undo all the progress we've made. The commander frowned. It's too risky. What if it tries to escape? X won't escape, Sarah insisted. X came here voluntarily, remember, to help us understand each other. But we need to show some trust in return. After much debate, the commander agreed to a compromise. They would allow X into a large, enclosed outdoor area, under heavy guard. The next day, as they stepped into the sunlight, Sarah saw X's reaction. The xenomorph stretched its long limbs and made a sound of pure joy. It was the first time Sarah had seen X truly relaxed since they left XR-27. As the days passed, more and more people came to meet X. Scientists conducted tests, trying to understand xenomorph biology. Government officials came to assess the situation, and slowly, carefully, a few journalists were allowed to interview Sarah and X. One journalist, a young woman named Maria, seemed particularly interested in their story. How did you overcome your fear? She asked Sarah. Most people would have run away or tried to fight. Sarah thought for a moment. I guess I was just more curious than afraid, she said. And once we started communicating, I realized there was nothing to fear. X is intelligent, kind, and wants peace just as much as we do. Maria turned to X. And what do you think of humans, now that you've met more of us? X's response, translated through the computer, surprised everyone. Humans are complex. Some fear, some curious. Like xenomorphs. Not so different, deep inside. The interview was broadcast worldwide. The response was overwhelming. Some people were fascinated, eager to learn more. Others were scared, calling for X to be sent away from Earth. But no one could deny the intelligence and peacefulness X had shown. As public interest grew, pressure mounted on the government to make a decision. What should be done with X? How should Earth respond to this new understanding of xenomorphs? One evening, Commander Johnson called Sarah to his office. We've received a transmission, he said, his face serious. From deep space. Well, you should see for yourself. He played the message. Sarah's eyes widened as she saw the image on the screen. It was another xenomorph, larger than X, with a crown-like structure on its head. A queen. The queen spoke, her words translated by their computers. We have been watching. We see how you treat our child, whom you call X. We are ready to talk. To end the cycle of fear and violence between our species. Will you meet with us? Sarah felt a mix of excitement and fear. This was bigger than she had ever imagined. It wasn't just about her and X anymore. This could change the future of both species, of the entire galaxy. She looked at Commander Johnson. What do we do? The commander sighed. I don't know. This is beyond anything we've dealt with before. But I do know one thing. We're going to need your help, Sarah. You and X. You're the bridge between our species now. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She thought of X, of the journey they had taken together. From fear to friendship, from misunderstanding to communication. Okay, she said. Let's make history. The next few days were a blur of activity. Earth's leaders debated intensely about how to respond to the xenomorph queen's message. Some wanted to ignore it, fearing a trap. Others saw it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for peace. In the end, they decided to accept the offer to meet, but they needed someone to lead the mission, someone who understood both humans and xenomorphs. Sarah wasn't surprised when Commander Johnson called her to his office. We want you to lead the diplomatic mission, he said. You'll take X with you, of course. You two are our best chance at making this work. Sarah felt a mix of excitement and fear. When do we leave? She asked. In 3 days, the commander replied. We're preparing our best ship for you. When Sarah told X about the mission, the xenomorph made a sound that the translator interpreted as excitement. meet Queen, go home, but also sad to leave Earth. Made friends here. Sarah smiled. I understand. But think of what this could mean for both our species. We're going to make history, X. The day of departure arrived quickly. As Sarah and X boarded the ship, a crowd had gathered to see them off. Sarah was surprised to see Maria, the journalist, among them. I'm coming with you, Maria announced. The world needs to see this historic moment. I've been approved to document your journey. Sarah nodded, realizing the importance of sharing this story with the world. As the ship took off, Sarah looked out at the shrinking Earth below. She thought about how much had changed since she first met X on that distant planet. Now, they were embarking on a mission that could change the fate of two species. The journey to the meeting point took several weeks. During this time, Sarah, X, and Maria worked on preparing for the encounter. They practiced different greeting scenarios, discussed potential issues, and tried to anticipate the Queen's questions. Finally, they arrived at the coordinates the Queen had provided. It was a small, uninhabited planet with a breathable atmosphere. As they landed, Sarah saw another ship already there, much larger and more organic-looking than their own. That must be the xenomorph ship, Sarah said, her heart racing. X made a sound of agreement. Queen is here. Can sense her. They stepped out onto the planet's surface. The air was thin but breathable. In the distance, Sarah could see a group of figures approaching. As they got closer, she gasped. Leading the group was the largest xenomorph Sarah had ever seen. The Queen was at least twice the size of X, with a massive crown-like structure on her head. Behind her were several other xenomorphs, all watching the humans cautiously. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward. Greetings, she said, as X translated her words into xenomorph language. I am Sarah, from the planet Earth. We come in peace and friendship. The Queen tilted her massive head, studying Sarah. Then, to everyone's surprise, she spoke in halting English. Greetings, Sarah of Earth. We learn your words to show respect. Sarah felt a surge of hope. If the Queen had gone to the trouble of learning English, she must truly want this meeting to succeed. For the next few hours, the two groups talked. The Queen explained that xenomorphs had been misunderstood for centuries. Yes, they were fierce warriors, but they only fought to protect themselves and find new homes after their planets were destroyed by other species. We no want war, the Queen said. Want peace, want home. Sarah nodded. We want the same thing. Maybe we can help each other. Earth has many uninhabited planets in its territory. Perhaps we could find a new home for your people. The Queen's reaction was unmistakable, even to those who couldn't understand xenomorph expressions. She was hopeful. As the meeting concluded, Sarah felt a sense of accomplishment, unlike anything she'd ever experienced. They had taken the first steps towards peace between humans and xenomorphs. As they prepared to return to their ships, the Queen turned to Sarah one last time. Thank you, she said in her strange, hissing voice. You and X, show us new way, better way. Sarah smiled, looking at X, who stood proudly beside her. This is just the beginning, she said. Together, we can build a better future for both our species. As they boarded their ship for the journey home, Sarah knew that the real work was just beginning. But for the first time, there was hope for true understanding between humans and the galaxy's deadliest predators. The journey back to Earth was filled with excitement and hope. Sarah, X, and Maria spent hours discussing the meeting with the Queen and planning for the future. They knew that what they had achieved was just the beginning. As their ship approached Earth, Sarah received a message from Commander Johnson. The whole world is waiting to hear about your mission, he said. We've arranged a global broadcast for your return. Sarah felt a mix of nervousness and determination. This was their chance to change how the entire human race viewed xenomorphs. When they landed, Sarah was amazed to see the huge crowd that had gathered. People from all over the world had come to witness this historic moment. As Sarah and X stepped out of the ship, A hush fell over the crowd. Sarah took a deep breath and approached the microphone set up for her. X stood beside her, a powerful symbol of the change they were bringing. "People of Earth," Sarah began, her voice carried to millions around the world, "we bring news of peace. The xenomorphs, long feared as the deadliest predators in the galaxy, are not our enemies. They are a species capable of intelligence, empathy, and a desire for peaceful coexistence." She went on to explain their meeting with the Queen, the misunderstandings of the past, and the possibilities for the future. As she spoke, she could see the crowd's reaction changing from fear to curiosity and even hope. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then, to Sarah's surprise, someone in the crowd started clapping. Soon, the applause spread, growing into a thunderous roar. X, understanding the significance of the moment, stepped forward. Using the English it had learned, X spoke directly to the crowd and the cameras. "Humans," it said in its distinct voice, "xenomorphs want peace, want friendship. Together, we make better galaxy." The effect was electric. Seeing the xenomorphs speak of peace in their own language seemed to touch people in a way that nothing else could. Over the next few months, Sarah and X became the faces of a new era of human-xenomorph relations. They traveled the world, speaking to leaders and ordinary people alike, breaking down centuries of fear and misunderstanding. Scientists from both species began to work together, sharing knowledge and technology. The xenomorphs' advanced biological adaptability combined with human innovation led to breakthroughs in medicine and space travel. 1 year after their return from the diplomatic mission, Sarah and X stood on a new planet, one that would become the first shared human-xenomorph colony. As they watched humans and xenomorphs working side by side to build homes and research facilities, Sarah felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. "Did you ever imagine this when we first met?" she asked X. X made a sound that Sarah now recognized as laughter. "Never imagined," it replied in its much improved English. "But glad it happened. You showed us new ways, Sarah. Showed us humans can be friends, not just prey or enemies." Sarah smiled. "And you showed us that even the deadliest predator can become an ally and friend. We've both learned so much." As they stood there, a young human child approached them. Looking curiously at X instead of fear, there was only wonder in the child's eyes. "Hello," the child said to X. "Can I be your friend too?" X lowered itself to the child's level, gently extending a clawed hand. "Yes," it said softly. "Friends." As Sarah watched the child fearlessly take X's hand, she knew that they had truly changed the galaxy. The future that lay ahead was not one of conflict and fear, but of cooperation and mutual understanding. That night, as the colony's first buildings rose against the alien sky, Sarah looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, countless other species were living in fear of each other, locked in cycles of violence and misunderstanding. But now, Earth and the xenomorphs had shown that change was possible. "This is just the beginning," Sarah said to herself, filled with hope for the future. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew that together, humans and xenomorphs could face anything. As a shooting star streaked across the sky, Sarah made a wish, not for herself, but for the entire galaxy. A wish for understanding, for peace, and for the courage to see beyond appearances and find the common ground that unites all sentient beings.